Coming up on 8:35, here's a live look from the White House in Washington. President Trump has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn a lower court's decision that most of his sweeping trade tariffs were illegal.
The president filing a petition Wednesday to ask for a review of last week's federal appeals court ruling in D.C. It focused on his Liberation Day border taxes introduced on April 2nd, which imposed levies of between 10 and 50% on most U.S. imports.
The court found in a 7-4 ruling last Friday that Trump had overstepped his presidential powers when he invoked a 1977 law designed to address national emergencies to justify his reciprocal tariffs.
All right, joining us now, our chief analyst, Khalif Rose, to talk about the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. They say he overstepped. Khalif, what could come next? Because we imagine that the Supreme Court will, grant Trump's request to have this heard.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this in our last hearing, our last hit for sure.
Feels been in too many cases,
right? Look, I can say that they all are starting to merge. First of all, President Trump does something, someone appeals, or someone files a claim. The lower court, in this instance, a district court, and then a court of appeals makes a decision, and then the Trump administration says we will immediately appeal. And then you also have judges that are now, because they know the Trump administration is doing this instant appeal, requesting that the Supreme Court, grant an emergency hearing, they're putting in their orders this kind of cushion so that he can go in and do this. Typically, a judge will issue something and say, all right, it's done, move on. If you want to appeal, you have your time frame, but my order is my order. Within this order, it says won't take effect till October. That'll give you time to go ahead and appeal up to the Supreme Court. They'll have a hearing in November. All of those things are already laid out, but looking at the meat of what the appeals court looked at, specifically saying that this International Emergency Economic Powers Act, you've exceeded the specific limitations. Show me the emergency is what the court's saying. 7-4, you had 7 of those judges on the Court of Appeals saying that there is no emergency. There is not an emergency at all, and because you can't point to a legitimate emergency, you didn't have authority or power to do this. So it will have a rippling effect on the power that the Trump administration has attempted to pull from the from Congress, and the courts is now doing what they are supposed to do. That co-equal branches of government is now saying, wait, hold on, you're not able to do that.
If, Khalif, the Supreme Court were to uphold the ruling, the administration might have to repay billions in tariffs, right? So what legal, what financial challenges does that pose? And then number 2, are there any other laws that Trump could find or use to try to keep pushing tariffs?
I don't think so. I mean, this is why he was, in terms of the second question, I don't think there's anything else out there.
Yeah.
He has a number of folks in the room that are extremely intelligent. And when you have intelligent people, sometimes it can be used for good, sometimes it can be used for bad. But honestly, whatever side of the aisle you're on, you can always say, I want to go here. Show me the law that supports this. And someone would have come in the room and said, hey, we got this one right here that you can use. It's limited, but you can use it. And then, as in Trump has done this a number of times, I will attempt to see how far I can extend the limitations of what they've already put on this rule. I don't think there's anything else out there because it's the only thing that's given him the authority to give these tariffs for a limited basis. Now, the other thing I will say is that it will have a rippling effect on our economy. I mean, if you cut these tariffs in half, that's going to be a lot of money given back. But then you also have these deals that he's been making with Europe and with other countries that are they going to be rolled back? You walk away from this opinion with more questions than answers. Let's be clear. I'm happy that we got an opinion. It wasn't an emergency issue that was just like, no, we'll reject it or we'll accept it. They gave us clear guidelines on what they thought was violated and how the Trump administration did not follow the rules. But it's left us as a country now finding out, well, if I order something, will the tariffs be tripled? Will they be doubled? Will they be back to what they were before? I mean, that's the real life impact, because most of the time folks say, well, what happens in Washington doesn't affect me. But when those tariffs took effect, if you order something from China, you saw it. It instantly went up. The price for your goods to be shipped here, that price went up instantly.
So we imagine that, again, the Supreme Court's going to take this up before October. I do want to ask, so with the Supreme Court taking these issues up so quickly, is this normal? What normal procedures do they follow to say, okay, this case needs to be heard immediately, this one can wait until the next docket?
2 parts. So is it typical that the Supreme Court hears cases at this amount of
this rate of speed?
No. So at the timeline, No, but two parts. So you have a traditional hearing that will get requested to go before the Supreme Court, and they'll grant cert to actually hear the case. And you need 4 justices to be able to make a determination if we'll grant cert to hear that case. But on an emergency basis, this is a timing issue. This is I need an injunction lifted. They do routinely hear these emergency hearings, just not as many. And so is this normal? Yes, this process is normal. You can always appeal to the Supreme Court for an emergency hearing, and this won't be on the merits. It will be just to review, did the Court of Appeals get this right, put an injunction or lift an injunction. It won't be a full-fledged hearing. That portion is normal. What's not normal is the amount that we've seen this happen so many times, so often, but because the challenges are happening, you'll see even more.
I would hate to be the scheduler in charge of all these cases and moving things around. It's a lot. All right, Khalif, thanks, man.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.